Hello everybody, MorbTron here, and today starts a new little series that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be covering all the different subclasses in the game since they're rebalanced. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of review, a little bit of a guide along with those. Figure today, since it's the start of it, might as well as cover my main, the Sunbreaker Titan. Now I will be going over the three different tiers, top, middle, and bottom, for the subclass. We'll cover any armor that works well with the subclass, even universal armors for the Titan. But we'll cover every piece of exotic armor that directly affects it and is specific only to Sunbreaker, even if it's something that I don't enjoy or that is in general just bad. Now, starting off with the exotic armors. My favorite exotic armor piece to use with Sunbreaker would have to be the Heart of Inmost Light. I've covered this exotic numerous times, the initial review that I did of the exotic, and then a kind of refresher to kind of give it back some attention that it should have gotten and retained, especially when compared to things like One-Eyed Mask. What this thing does is when using a ability, Grenade, Melee, or Barricade, it empowers the other two abilities. Empowered means they have faster regen, Melees and Grenades do more damage, Barricades have more hit points. It can cause certain grenades to one-hit for the Titan, it can give you back your ability super quick, and in general it is just very fun and pairs up with Sunbreaker very well. Now, the reason why this exotic pairs up very well with Sunbreaker is the other exotics for Sunbreaker specifically, I think, are very lackluster and are kind of bad in general. The better of the two that we have Hallow Fireheart. Now, this thing used to be kind of the raiding Titans kind of go-to, but I don't like it simply because to use it, you really can't use your super. The abilities recharge quicker, so your melee, your barricade, and your grenade recharge much quicker when your super is fully charged. But the second that you use your super, that exotic perk is useless. So not being able to throw your hammers just doesn't sit well with me. But it can provide you with constant melee and grenade and barricade when used correctly. It's just not my cup of tea. The other exotic I don't even have on me, nor do I even feel like pulling it out of the collections tab because it is so bad. We're looking at the Ashen Wake Gauntlets, and what they do is they change the fusion grenade, and only the fusion grenade, with a Sunbreaker Titan, and they now explode on impact and gain increased throw speed. So turning the sticky grenade into kind of like an instantaneous frag type grenade, except it doesn't change its detonation radius, only gives it more speed. So you're basically throwing flaming baseballs at your target. They literally do no extra damage whatsoever. So they're kind of pointless. I really was hoping for something a lot better when these things first came to the scene. Don't even look that bad. I think they actually look pretty good, but the exotic perk is just kind of bad. Now, we're going to start by going over my favorite tier of the Sunbreaker, the Code of the Fireforged, or top tier. The things to keep in mind for this is you have Shoulder Charge, which is both amazing in Crucible, obviously, because it's a one-hit kill on un-overshielded enemies, and if an enemy in the Crucible does have an overshield, they'll usually take ticking damage over time and burn to death by the time they can regen their health. And in PvE, shoulder charging something causes it to take additional damage, which is very nice for you and the rest of your fire team. The actual super itself, the hammers explode on impact, and the explosion radius is quite large and does quite a bit of damage. You can't throw as many hammers as you can with the bottom tier, but the hammers overall do more damage. We also have, again, Vulcan's Rage. Hammer shatters explode into molten embers on impact. Well, we have Tempered Metal as well. Solar ability kills, so we have your super, your grenade, and your melee grant you and nearby allies bonus movement speed and reload speed. And the reload speed increase is quite substantial. It is very noticeable, making things reload almost instantaneously as it stacks up to 3. Now, the grenades, they don't change at all for the Sunbreaker. The jumps are standard Titan jumps. The barricades are standard Titan barricades, so I'm not going to cover those. Your fusion grenade is a sticky grenade. The thermite grenade is my go-to in PvE as it causes waves of fire. And the incendiary grenade is the same incendiary grenade that hunters have for Golden Gun or for Gunslinger, whatever you want to call it. Fusion grenade is shared with the Warlock. However, thermite is unique to Sunbreaker Titans. And the thermite grenade is quite potent. So you see now we're in a PvE setting. This is the thermite grenade. And by the way, before we go any farther, if you all appreciate this sort of class review, share it off with your friends that are maybe new to the game, interested in rolling a Titan, or maybe just want to know a little bit more about the subclass if you main another character. Also, subscribe. I mean, just do it. It's free. Anyway, moving on to the melee ability, Shoulder Charge, or Hammer Strike. I'm going to find a meaty enemy. There we go. You can see there, it's making him take additional damage. It's very nice. And the super, well, everything explodes. And it lets you do stuff like this in the Crucible.
You're getting stronger as you fight. I love it.
And you're dead. And you're dead. And you're dead. And you're dead. And
The route is on. Finish it.
okay, now that we've covered top tree, or Code of the Fireforged for Sunbreaker, it's time to take a look at the middle tree, Code of the Devastator. Now the thing that is different between the top tier and bottom tier is the middle tier was added in Forsaken, so you need to own Forsaken to be able to use this, but if you like playing Destiny 2, I'm sure you've already done that. So what's different about Code of the Devastator versus top or bottom tier? Well, instead of throwing a hammer for your super, you get to throw a hammer as your melee ability. I know that sounds really, really good, and it is very fun to use in like a patrol situation or strikes or a nightfall, but isn't ever really situationally the best thing when compared to what top tier or bottom tier offers you for utility. The throwing hammers, they don't do a one-hit kill, which is good. There are certain things that you can use to do that, but I'll get to that in a minute. The actual super itself, you hold a giant burning maul, like you see here, and weird, the super is called Burning Maul. Now, the two abilities that you get when using your super, your standard attack is a whirlwind move of sorts where you spin around and just whack things with your hammer as you spin around. Or if you do your heavy attack, what happens is you smash your hammer on the ground and a wave of fire shoots out, which will track the target that the game thinks that you're intending to damage and will cause them to get caught up in a fire tornado. This does track incredibly aggressively with the last rebalance patch. Even in the Crucible, it will track people around corners at times and do like a complete 90-degree turn in order to hit an enemy guardian. I know, I've been on the receiving end of that. It's not fun. But even so, even though it does have amazing tracking, this super does have its downfall. The heavy attack strike does have a fairly limited range when compared to other supers, and the whirlwind attack just does not offer enough oomph behind it. It doesn't do enough damage to consider it being useful, and you don't get a whole lot more super armor, so you're kind of just a big glowing, hey look at me and shoot me target in the Crucible. Therefore, it's not my favorite thing to use in the world. Now, we do have something called Roaring Flames with this super, with this Code of the Devastator. That is actually very, very interesting. Kills with the solar abilities, so your melee, your super, and your grenade increase the damage of your abilities, and this stacks. So the higher your stacks get, the more damage your abilities are going to do. And this works very, very well with a couple different exotics that I'll mention specifically for Code of the Devastator. those are the one that I have equipped right now that I've already talked about, the Heart of Inmost Light, but also Syntheseps. And what Syntheseps do is they do increased melee lunge range, which doesn't really make any bit of difference with a throwing hammer, but it does improve the melee and super damage when you're surrounded. So Syntheseps actually increase the damage of your super when you're surrounded, which if you're in a PvE situation with this super, you're going to be surrounded by enemies when you're using it. And it increases the damage of your melee ability. So get a couple stacks going of the Roaring Flames buff with the Syntheseps on, and pretty soon you're going to get one-hit kills, even in the Crucible with your melee hammer. It's a little bit tricky to pull off. I haven't done it particularly myself, but it's also because I don't really use Code of the Devastator at all in the Crucible. And after you hit an enemy with your throwing hammer, if you go and pick it back up, you'll get health regeneration, which can make running things in PvE like Nightfalls and Strikes and what have you very, very interesting and very soloable. Having just health regeneration basically on cue and on tap whenever you throw your melee hammer. But let's see what we can do here with this super in a PvE scenario. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of this being used in the Crucible. As like I said, I don't particularly enjoy this subclass, but there are people that use Code of the Devastator in Crucible. It's just not really ever the best option situationally. Top tree is always going to be the better option basically in Crucible. Oh, and there's my hammer. It's over there. It does explode after a while if you do not pick it up. But as you can see here, we're getting our Rolling Flames. We also have Empowered going right now from the exotic chest piece, the Heart of Inmost Light, as well. So, spamming the throwing hammer, you get your grenades back very, very quickly, and they also do increased damage with both the Empowered perk from your armor and the Roaring Flames perk from your subclass. So, can be pretty fun to use in a PvE situation. Let's get some more damage rolling here. And there is the melee ability, or the light attack with the super. Still does a fair amount of damage. Now we're going to see how that tracks. You can see the super kind of tracked its target there. It does run out fairly quickly, though. Moving on to bottom tree. Last but not least, by far, we have Code of the Siegebreaker, which also got some major, major buffs from this last patch. Again, that's a patch that added the last word into the game as well. Now, what's different about this super? It has the same throwing hammer super as top tier, except the hammers do not explode. What they do is they leave patches of fire on the ground called sunspots. Hammers create a sunspot on impact. While standing in the sunspots, you throw hammers faster. You can also lose your super a lot slower, so you can throw more hammers. And the hammers do more damage. In fact, if you're standing in a sunspot, which grants you to recharge your abilities faster, your super lasts longer, it also increases all damage you do. Now this change is really, really good. It used to only increase ability damage and make your super and abilities recharge faster. However, now, you even put a sunspot in the ground, you pull out your hand cannon is going to do more damage as well. It's fantastic. Also, the sunspots cause damage to your enemies. So, you use your melee ability, your grenade ability, you get a kill, you stand in that sunspot, you regen your abilities quicker, you do more damage, and also you restore your health on solar ability kills. It's absolutely fantastic. So, solar kills regen your health. Sunspots are technically a solar kill. If something comes in melee range of you, they take ticking damage. If it's like a thrall or something like that, they're going to die pretty much instantaneously. You're not going to even get a tickle from them, and you're going to regen health if you're hurt. The melee ability with this bottom tree, Code of the Siegebreaker, is just a standard punch. However, if the thing is low enough health to die from your punch, it will explode, which can cause a chain reaction. So if there's a bunch of thrall around you, if you notice a weak one or something, or shoot one in the leg, punch it in the face, it explodes, causing a chain reaction. Suddenly you're surrounded by sunspots, you do more damage, you're regenerating health while things are dying from your solar abilities, and you're doing more damage overall as well, and regenerating all of your abilities faster. The amount of synergy within Code of the Siegebreaker is just outstanding, and when played correctly, can be absolutely amazing. This super also pairs very, very well with the Heart of Inmost Light, as getting the Empowered buff stacks with the Sunspot buff, so you regen your abilities even quicker, and they do even more damage. Now, in the Crucible, I don't think the actual super is better than top tier. However, the abilities, I think, are really, really well. They're really, really good, rather. Now, we're standing in our sunspot. How much does our hand cannon do? 1079. Once Sun Warrior goes away, and that's the thing, you don't even need to get, you don't even need to be stationary in a sunspot. The Sun Warrior perk happens regardless. And let's just get another sunspot going. And this guy just died standing in our sunspot. 1079. And we, of course, have Rampage on this hand cannon, so let's let all of our buffs die down. And there we go, and that's a little bit out of range. Let's get up closer. 863. So the amount that the super, or the amount that the sunspots increase the weapon damage by is actually very substantial. Very, very good. So we got a sunspot. Let's pop our super, which also automatically puts down a sunspot. You don't have to get a kill right away. But you can see here, we're now standing in our sunspot, and we are throwing hammers at the enemy. We get a Dust Rock Blues. He was taking damage from the super itself and all of those sunspots there. It can really, really melt a PvE target very, very quickly if you're standing in a sunspot and your enemy is standing in a sunspot and you're throwing hammers at them. It's amazing. It's a really, really good super for PvE, and if you can be accurate with it in the Crucible, it can be very good there as well, especially knowing that standing in a sunspot, getting the Sun Warrior buff will increase your weapon damage, increase your abilities, or increase your ability regeneration, rather, and cause your abilities to do more damage as well. But that is going to be the end of this highlight video going over the Titan Sunbreaker subclass. Going forward, this being the first one, if you want to see the way I do these change a little bit, let me know in the comment section down below. I'm always open to suggestions for improvements. If you enjoyed this video or you want to see more of them, subscribe. Doesn't cost you a darn thing. But do not forget to have a good day, everybody, and I will catch you all next time.